Hello logical thinkers, welcome to Coding _ Puzzle YouTube channel. Today I am going to explain why strings are immutable and what is James Gosling explanation about it, the Java founder. I am going to explain in three major steps what is immutable and how strings are stored, and then how strings are made immutable and why strings are made immutable. Let's go with the first one, immutable, meaning whose value cannot be changed. This is the meaning of immutable. And then the second thing is how strings are stored. If you write this particular declaration and initialization, you will be seeing it in Java, right? So from outsider, the str contains the value coding, but internally how Java treats is, for this particular coding, this particular coding is stored in memory and it has a memory address, let's say 1001 for example. This coding is stored in a memory and the memory address of the memory is 1001 and the str will contain the value 1001. So when you declare and initialize a string, a memory is created for coding and that particular memory address is mapped to str. Okay, this is the process. And how strings are made immutable? How? Strings are made immutable. Okay, let us string str is equal to coding and then str is equal to puzzle. These two lines we will be seeing it in Java program. Okay, generally these lines are possible, so there won't be any compile time error. Java allows this. Okay, but you might get a confusion. You said that strings are immutable, that is we cannot change the value, but in the third line for str coding is the value. For the fourth line I am changing the str value to puzzle. It is violating the base condition that strings must be immutable, right? But I will show you how internally it works. Currently, after executing the third line, for coding a memory will be allotted and the 1001 will be the memory address. This 1001 is, for example, real time it might be a different one. Okay, and then this str will be mapped to 1001. Okay, this is the process. And after the fourth line is executed, for puzzle a new memory will be created, and in a new memory location this particular puzzle word will be stored. Let us say the memory address is 1002 and the coding will also be available in the memory. For coding the 1001 is mapped, right? It will be also there, but this str will be remapped to 1002. So first if line is executed, then coding is stored in the memory and the memory address of the memory is stored in str. After the second line is executed, a new memory for puzzle is created and then the memory address of the puzzle is stored in str. The existing 1001 is removed from str. This is how strings are made immutable. Meanwhile, coding will also be there in the memory with the address 1001. Okay, let us move to the third one. Why strings are made immutable? The reason for why is security. Let us say we have a guy called Mike. He is going to access a computer, a public computer. There are two drives in the computer, C drive which has the text file test1.txt and then D drive which has the text file test2.txt. But Mike has access only to the C drive, so he will not be able to access D drive and the file inside the D drive. Now Mike is writing a Java program to access the C drive test1.txt. Okay, for that we need the file path, right? It is stored in a string file path is equal to C drive test1.txt. okay, now when the mic runs the Java program, it will first reach the authentication system. Okay, after that, one more thing I need to say, this sixth line will be interrupted as I said earlier, it will be stored in a memory which is 1001 and it will be mapped here. Okay, once it crosses the authentication system, this authentication system will receive the memory address. Okay, 1001. Okay, so this authentication system will receive this memory address and then it will perform check whether this mic has access to C drive test1.txt. Once it get passed, it will go to the OS call. That is, OS will invoke the particular file and then it will display it in the monitor. So this is the general flow from Java program, next to authentication, next to OS call, and then it is getting displayed. Now let us assume that strings are mutable. That is, we can change the value. It is violating the base condition, but for explanation purpose, let us take strings are mutable. Now these three lines will be the same. Now Mike is writing the Java program and then it is passing the authentication system with the memory address 1001, and then now what Mike does is doing a cheating, some kind of an hacking stuff. So he is changing the file path to D drive. That is, what he is doing is he is changing it to D drive and then to text2.txt. See, D drive test2.txt. okay, so he is changing the file path to this particular path, but Mike cannot access this path. As I said earlier, he has access only to the C drive. Now if strings are mutable, then what will happen is on 1001 memory address, this D test2.txt will be replaced. Okay, now this address will be passed to the OS call, right? So now if it comes to the OS call, it will read the 1001 memory address. Here also the 1001 only, and then it will take this particular string and then it will invoke the file and then it will display it in the monitor. It is a direct security violation because Mike has access only to the C drive, but due to his tactics and then hacking skills, after authentication he has invoked the D drive test2.txt. It is a major security violation. Because of this particular reason only, the strings are made immutable. Okay, now let's come to strings are immutable. If this is the case, then what will happen if this hacking is performed? Just copy this one. Okay, and then Java program, authentication, everything is happening pretty good. And then now Mike is changing the file path to D drive test2.txt. Okay, now since strings are immutable, what will happen is for this particular string, a new memory location will be created and the address will be 1002. Now this file path will be mapped to the new memory address. Okay, but this authentication is dealing with the old memory address and the OS authentication will pass this memory address to OS call. So OS call will also receive the old memory address. In the old memory address, we have C test1.txt. So it will invoke the file and it will display it in the monitor. So this is the main reason why strings are made immutable. If it is mutable, then the same memory address is getting changed, which is a security violation. So Mike is able to invoke the file for which he doesn't have the access. To overcome this process, they have made strings as immutable. Okay guys, thanks for watching.